Hi friends, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my channel for another video. Today we are going to be using some Catherine Pooler products. I could not resist using this Mugshots stamp set and dies. I think it's not really new, it's new to me, but I just love this set. And we're going to pair it up with the Daily Grind 6x6 patterned paper by Catherine Pooler. I've also decided to bring in a stencil. This is the Trinity Stamps Good Morning Sunshine stencil. It's perfect. And then I have this 12x12 paper. This is the double thick white from scrapbook.com by Bazzill. That's the only place I've been able to find it, so I will have it linked down below, but I love using this for mini slimline, and we're going to make 8 mini slimline today. Now basically 4, but double of each one. So this is what I do. I cut 6 inches, then another 6 inches, and then cut these in half 6 inches. So then you have 4 mini slimlines out of one 12x12 piece of cardstock. For my stamping, as usual, I'm going to use my Express It cardstock and ink this up with my Memento Tuxedo black ink, and I'm going to fill this paper with it. This is a 5.5 by 8.5 inch piece of that Express It cardstock, and so we're just going to fill it because I don't know exactly how many images I'm going to need. I do end up having some leftovers, but it's filled. So we'll jump into our Copic coloring, and I'm not going to show you all of the coloring because there's a lot here. But for our first image, we've got BG45. I kind of used one of the patterned papers from that Daily Grind to decide how I was going to do this. So that's how I picked up my colors and how I was going to color most of these cups. This is BG49. You'll notice that is vastly different, a lot darker. And so I'm going to do my best to blend it with the BG45, and I come up a little short. So what I am going to end up doing, and you'll see when I bring in the next cup, I don't know why I wasn't remembering this, but you can do a tip-to-tip method. And it doesn't hurt your markers. In fact, it works just fine. So what you'll do is, and I'm just blending this first, just to kind of get a little bit more of a wash on there. I'm going to take my lighter Copic and put the tip of it on that darker Copic and then blend that out. So that gives it a little bit more seamless blend. It's obviously still a dark contrast, but it helps with the blend. So I'll do that for all 3 of those little corgi mugs, which that corgi has my heart. Oh my goodness. Yes, I'm going to be sending this one to my son, who doesn't have a corgi, but he sure wants one. All right, so then we brought in some E87, and that's going to go for all of our coffee as well, and then some E89. That's going to be our darker shade, and then I'll blend that out on all the corgis. Then for this cup, we're going to come in with some R22. I don't put all the colors up on the screen, so I'm just going to tell you as I use them if that's something that you're interested in. So that's R22, and then I'm going to come in with some I think it's 14. So I use that R14. You wouldn't think that those would go necessarily together, but again, with Copics, if you haven't heard me say it before, the numbers have meaning. So it's not Copic like R14 and R22. That might give you a little bit misleading. That 1 and that 2, or that 1 and that 4 on R14 mean something. So that's why I always pronounce them R14 and R22. Then we'll come in with some RV13 for the ears and the flowers, and I'm just showing you the bits here, just making it quick. Sometimes I don't use a 2-color blend on these. This is a YG06 or 11. It's a YG11, and I'm just coming in on the leaves. And then we're going to come in with some G02. That's going to be our darker green, and we'll go all around this cup. This one takes a little bit more time because we're trying to be careful not to go over the leaves or over the flowers themselves, and so we're having to work in between. And then we'll bring in a darker shade of green and be pretty careful doing that. And this is the G16. And then I will blend that out a little bit, bringing in that G02, but you don't see me do that. And then I will use the G02 on this cup, on the stripes, and then once again bring in that G16 and add a little bit of shading there. And then I don't think I actually blend this out. I may, but I don't remember. And then of course with our little cat mugs, they have to be Siamese. So one will be a seal point and one will be a blue point like my babies. So this one we use the E84. That's my mid-tone on his ears, his tail. You'll notice I did one down below. Somehow I screwed that one up. I started with the very darkest color, and that made it even harder for me to blend out. And then I'll come in with some E87 just on the tip and in the center, and then I'll work myself backwards. Yeah, that bottom cup looks like a hot mess. I still end up using it, but I'm not as thrilled with him. And then we'll go backwards from there by using the E84 and the E50. So E50 was our base for all of our Siamese. And then for our blue point, we bring in W4 and then some W6 and then work backwards going W4 and E50. And once those are all blended, I'm going to move on to that heart on that one center cup. Originally, I thought I would leave it blank, but I decided I needed to bring in a little more color. So we'll do the BG45 and the BG49 and blend those out. And then I'll bring in the matching dies and die cut all of those. So I'm showing you this panel because I don't like it, but we're going to work with it. I'm going to end up using a panel over the top of it. Now I said all of my cards were going to be slimline or mini slimline. So mini slimline is a 6x6 and it is scored at 3 inches. So it's 3 inches by 6 inches. So I've brought in that stencil. Once again, that's the Trinity Stamps Good Morning Sunshine stencil. And I'm bringing that more towards the center. And then I have some Do-Si-Do ink by Catherine Pooler, and I'm making this nice and dark using my Blender Buddy. And I have used some Heffy tape just to kind of cover pieces so that I don't get ink where I don't want it. And then I'm going to bring in the second stencil. So this is a 2-piece stencil, and they go over the top of each other so beautifully because there is this nice embossed image on it. So it makes it really easy to line up. And so I'll set that one right on top of what I just did, matching up the embossed lines so that I have a perfect blend. And then I'll stick that Heffy tape back down. And I'm going to go really light. Almost looks like I'm not doing anything, but I am adding a little bit of color. You'll see when I pull it away just how nice that looks. It gives that one color 2 variations. Super fun. So I'll pull that away, and I like this so much better than the first panel I made. All right, now we're going to take that piece of pattern paper that I cut down to 1.5 inches by 6 inches, and we'll just attach that right down at the very bottom. There's a little bit of a white gap, so I'm going to cover that with some black cardstock. But before I do that, I'm going to grab out my black cardstock, use my magic powder bag on it, and I'm going to pull out some embossing powder. This is the Alabaster, but it's the Alabaster Sparkle. So it's the same fine white detail that I typically like to use, but this one has a little bit of glitter in it, and it adds a little bit of sparkle once you heat set that. So I'll heat set this until that is smooth and melted, and you'll know because it goes from a matte finish to a shiny finish. And yes, there's a little bit of residue from the magic powder bag, but once that is dry and cooled down, you can wipe that away. I have a couple pieces. These are just some scrap strips of black cardstock. They don't go all the way across, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to cover the middle with my image, so I'm not concerned about that. And I really don't like to waste any of this black cardstock just because I use it so much. And yeah, that's not centered. I can't tell at this point, but I end up deciding to use a different image anyway that will cover that a little better. We'll stick down our sentiment, and I'm lining this up on my glass mat, trying to make sure that it's nice and centered. And then I'm trying to work with that. I just don't like it, so I will bring in a different cup, and I like this cup way better anyway. For all the cups today, I am going to stick them down using some foam squares. I'm still waiting on a package that was supposed to have showed up here on the 1st of July. So I'm not sure if I should just make a claim or what, but it has all my foam squares and some extra glue and things like that. And anyway, just waiting. And that's not centered either, so I'll pick that up carefully and just move that over till it is centered. I'm going to attach this down to the card base I wasn't happy with, and then it's like it never happened. And I'm not wasting any paper, really. I'm going to bring in these jewels. I love these jewels. These are the Trinity Stamps Andradite Sparkle. They're brand new. They're this minty green color, and if you look at them in different lights, they kind of almost look a different color, different shades of green, but I am in love with them. And I'm using my pickup stick to put those down along with some Barely Art glue, and I am going to do that for almost all of the cards. So there's card number 1. Let's move on to card number 2. For our second mini slimline, I have a piece of white cardstock that I've cut down to 1 inch by 6 inches, and I'm going to use a couple of the sentiments. We're going to wrap it around basically this cup, so I've centered that. And then this first part of the sentiment, I just love these sentiments in this. May your coffee be strong. And then on the other side, we're going to stamp the other sentiment, your Monday be short. And then on the heart, we're actually going to stamp the ampersand. So that's just going to go right in the center of our coffee cup. May your coffee be strong and your Monday be short. I love it. All the sentiments in here are just such fabulous sentiments. I love these so much for sending to just about anybody for just about any reason. All right, I centered this one and I put this cup on there, but for the second one, and I will show you just what I'm talking about, there is an amazing stamp in there that is just looks like steam. So I'm going to stamp that out because I think all these coffee cups just look a little bit better with the steam coming out of them. So we'll attach this card front down to our card base, and that was that pattern paper. You take one piece of 6x6 pattern paper, cut it in half, 3 inches by 6 inches, and you can get 2 cards out of it, which is what I did here. And then I'm going to put the jewels down, same jewels that we used before. And that's going to be this card, but then I'll show you what I'm talking about for the second one of this version of this mini slimline that I did. I'll just take the matching die and run this through my die cutting machine. I am attaching the 1 inch by 6 inch with our sentiment farther down on the 3x6 panel. And this will give room for that steam to be placed on top or coming out of the cup. And then again, we'll just use foam tape on the back of that. But I think I don't know, it's even that much more effective and so much cuter with that steam coming out of the cup. So we'll attach that one down and then do the same process with jewels and all, and that's going to show you card number 2. Mini slimline number 3 is basically the same premise. This one's just going to be tall and skinny, and I have cut down my pattern paper to be 3 inches by 3 inches. We'll put the coffee bean one at the top, and then we'll put the little coffee mugs one down at the bottom. And that is the paper that I used to basically color most of the images that I colored. And then we're going to add a strip of white to the center, kind of making it a little bit more like not completely centered. And I'll line that up on there and then trim off that excess. And as you can see, we have our little corgi all ready to go. I was FaceTiming my son, who's overseas right now, as I was making this, and he got a good chuckle out of that corgi. And then I'm going to bring in the sentiment. And as I said, I am in love with these sentiments. I want to use them on all the cards, like this one that says, make today so awesome that yesterday gets jealous. It didn't stamp well the first time. I'm using VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, so I stamped it 2 more times. I only need it 2 times for the 2 mini slimline that I am making. And I'm going to put this into my guillotine trimmer and then trim these down fairly close so that I can attach these to the bottom part of our card. And then once again, we're going to bring in those jewels along with that pickup stick and our Barely Art glue. I love this glue. And that package that's missing, that my refill's in there. Doggone. All right, and so that's card number 3, and I just love how that one turned out. For mini slimline number 4, I basically missed all of the filming. So I mentioned earlier that I was chatting with my son on FaceTime. And so this is the product. This is number 4. It basically uses 2 cats per on the front and popped up with foam tape just like before. We have a strip of pattern paper that's about 3/4 of an inch by 6 inches, and it's on that far left hand side, and then once again using the jewels, and then we have our sentiment stamped down there at the bottom. But I love how this one turned out too. I will show you that I stamped on the inside of all of them and even added some pattern paper. So for our Siamese, which I should have done all the stamping before I put the jewels on, but it is what it is, I'm going to add in those sentiments that say, may your coffee be strong and your Monday be short. And I'm just putting it at the upper, the upper part of this card, and then we have 3/4 inch strips of paper on the left and right hand side. And I do that for both. And then for this one, I add pattern paper at the very top, but you can't just take a whole strip and add it to the top because there's a crease in the center. So what I did is I cut my paper in half. So it's 3 inches by 3/4 of an inch. And then I add it in there, and there's a tiny, gap in the middle, but that makes it so that the card can fold just fine. and then you cut off your excess. And then I'm going to stamp that sentiment. If you're going to rise, you might as well shine. Another one I love. And then we'll do the same thing with this other one. We're going to add pattern paper to the far left-hand side, but again, there's a gap there in the center, so I have to cut that paper in half. And then I'll add the sentiment at the top here as well, or no, in the middle. May today be so awesome that yesterday gets jealous. We'll add pattern paper to the bottom of this one, and then we'll stamp our sentiment in there. And then I screwed this up. I actually dropped the stamp right on the top part. It's fine. I'm going to use a mono sand eraser, and it does a really good job on this paper of clearing up the mistake. But whatever. Again, as I always say, adds to the handmade element of it. No one's going to expect absolute perfection. It is a handmade card. So that's that. Those are all 4 of the cards. Let me show you them here so that you can get a better close-up of them. I would love to know what you think of these mini Slimline. I probably could have made so many more. There's so much pattern paper left over, but I like making mini Slimline. Those are fun. All right, if you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And as always, I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.